Roll call.
Yes, Tom Duster.
Here.
Scott Holwick.
Here.
Roger Lang.
Here.
Renee Davis.
Here.
And Dan Wolford.
Here.
Wes Lowry.
Here.
Kevin Bowden.
Here.
Hope Bartlett. Here. Chris Huffer.
Here.
Heather McIntyre is here. Eric O'Brien.
Here.
And Alex, what's your last name?
Berklin, M-E-R-K, L-E-I-N.
Thank you. Alex is here. Councilmember Martin.
Here.
And Jerry Alpora.
All right, great. Let's start with approval of previous month's minutes. Are there any questions or comments about the minutes from last month? Is there a motion to approve it?
So.
All right, second?
Second.
All right. You've been moved and seconded. Let's all vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. Motion passed. Thank you. All right, Kevin.
Okay. Flow in the St. Vrain this morning was 21 CFS. The gauge is reporting ice right now, but it's probably correct. The 125-year historic average is 14.5 CFS for the state. Call on the St. Vrain Creek at is Foothills Reservoir, which has a priority date of 7/13/1910. Currently, there's no calls in the South Platte River. Ralph Price Reservoir, Platte Mark Preserve, is at an elevation of 6393.6, which is approximately 6.3 feet down and approximately 14,821 acre feet in storage, which is approximately 1,300 acre feet from full. Union Reservoir is currently at a gauge height of 23.6 feet or 9,781 acre feet, which is down approximately 2,987 acre feet. Select St. Vrain Brent Basin reservoirs at the end of December was 74% of full. This time last year, the reservoirs were 69% of full. So we're doing better than we were last year at the same time. And lastly, starting in January, we typically start reporting snowpack level levels. Keep in mind these readings are still pretty early. In the Colorado River headwaters, snowpack equivalent is right now at 100%. So looking good there. And St. Vrain snowpack equivalent is at 107% for mean.
A lot of snow over there.
Oh my God. I was
Anybody got in the snow slide at all?
Yeah, I was up in Fraser, and within 9-day period, they had 60 inches of snow. Yeah. Yeah, it's just incredible. I mean, Berthoud Pass was closed for 4 days.
Yeah.
Because of avalanches. Yeah.
Any questions for Kevin? Numbers stay pretty safe. It's constant all the time.
Yeah, they don't change a whole lot.
Yeah.
You know, commodities just start to change.
Thank you. Okay, Dan, were you through with your snow story?
What's that? If you want to see pictures, I'm happy to pass.
No.
That was my
March is first, then we can share you pictures later.
Okay.
Later in the meeting.
Sounds good.
All right.
Roger's old business. I'm like, I want to hear everyone's stories.
Just take a story break.
Yeah.
Okay, public invited to be heard. What's this?
So first, before we jump to presentation by Eric O'Brien, I did want to introduce Alex Merklin. Alex has taken, is the new water resource analyst for Longmont. He's kind of taken over what Nelson Tipton was previously doing. Today is his first day, so be gentle.
Oh, you lucky guy.
He's Longmont, born and raised native. Went to CSU, got his degree in watershed science and geography. And then he just completed a 6-month internship with the city of Greeley. So kind of a quick background of Alex. So we'll be seeing this familiar face as we move forward. So welcome.
Yeah.
You're fortunate. You don't look like you've been through college. You look around the room and you're in that thing, so.
So what we wanted to do today is we have Eric O'Brien. He's here to come and share a short little PowerPoint presentation with us.
Very short.
This is kind of in response to, you've heard Water Resources staff talk about a model that we've been using to determine historic water, non-historic water, how much deficit is still out there. And some of that information is what would be probably helpful to know as we continue to evaluate the fee for cash and lieu water rights received. So what we wanted to do is just, we keep mentioning this model, and so Eric's gonna go through kind of where we were in 2019. We were still having to update the numbers, and I don't want to steal his thunder, but that's kind of the tee up, and I'll let Eric hit it home.
Well, hello everyone. I know I've met pretty much everybody from the city side. It's nice to meet all of you who sit on the board. I've been here working for the city in a GIS capacity for a little over 11 years. And I've done quite a bit of support for the water board. But basically what I wanted to show you is just a few slides on how calculations are done. We're not going to talk about them in depth, but show you kind of just a short history of how GIS is supported. Wes and Ken and the whole team, and that, you know, we have the ability to do lots of things analytically wise based on the information that they receive from water rights and things that come into the city through annexation and stuff. So if we can go to the first one. So before I got here, this actually says GIS data 2004. I understand there was a first study, and these are some of these. This is an example of what they used to determine what was available within the city's planning area. So as you can see, there's lots of green, which are parcels that are available either to be annexed or purchased or, you know, used for whatever purpose at that time, and that's what the study was for then. There was very little that was owned by, say, Boulder County or other organizations that, you know, would impact, or there would be difficulty, say, getting water from those resources. So this is basically, from what I know, the most historic information we have for this type of study and analysis. Let's go ahead and do this one. So in 2018, a couple of my staff members took it upon themselves after they had a request from Nelson Tipton and Wes and Ken and group to do more detailed study. Again, it's based on the Longmont planning area, but as you can see in this representation, there's a lot less green. A lot of things happened over 14 years, so the available water for the time when the city gets to build out was reduced. So this year, I've been approached again by Ken and Wes. We're going to, and if you go ahead and go to the next slide, we're going to help them do another analysis. And this analysis, or when we go through and look at all this information, it's always done on a parcel level. There's no, real overarching way to look at this data. You have to look at it at each individual annex, how that annex is being developed, what are the parcels that the city doesn't have within the annex or the area itself, LPA area, sorry, I don't use that acronym too much, that's available for use. So we have to actually look at, what's being annexed, what historically comes with it, has it been developed yet, has there been the cash in lieu of or other things met for that property. And, we have to take all that into consideration before any of the numbers can start to come together.
Excuse me, just because it's going to be hard to interpret. Is the yellow border the
That's a portion of the LPA, yes.
Okay, as opposed to the city limits.
Correct.
Now, that's a good question. I was going to ask them the bigger one. You have city limits depicted, or was it?
We can depict them in there, yes. I mean, if that's needed for reference for whatever particular discussion that, the water resources team is going to have with everybody, whether it's the board and others, we can put all that information in here. And there's other anomalies that are not showed on this particular, or shown, I should say, on this particular image, that, we're gonna include as well if need be. So, it's not all pieces of property are not equal when it comes to determining what the amount of water should be from that property that the city has access to.
So,
Just one last quick, that little line on the top, that's 66
Correct.
there, isn't it?
Correct.
Is any of the property above 66 in the city limits?
so, yes, there is.
There is some.
There's a few. So Longmont, for example, it's annexed into the city limits. To the furthest left bottom square, Zeke annexation, which was just north of 66 and east of Holbert Road extended. That's been annexed for about 20 years. It just has never been developed. But what happened is, what you'll see if you go back and forth between the 04 and the 18, again, in that time, Boulder County bought a lot of open space. So in 2004, it was still eligible to be annexed. But when Boulder County either bought it or put a conservation easement, then it was a fair assumption to say that land was not going to be further developed. And so that's what happened in 2018, is we tried to get a little better accurate estimate of what would be coming into Longmont. And so it's going to be 2024, really the end of 2023, we're going to go in there and further detail where do we look at today, because there's been other open space acquisitions, both by the city and by the county. And we're going to look at what is actually annexed and what is actually platted or developed between this time and the end of last year. And so one thing that you'll notice between the 2004 and the 2018, there's one more area between the 2004 and the 2018. It's a huge area, and we've been trying to geographically lump areas, and you'll see it here in a couple slides why we need to do that. But it's likely that for the 2004 revision, we'll probably have another Area 11 or Area 12, because what these two attempts did, they didn't address all the stuff in the middle. We know that there's areas that aren't highlighted in this layer in 2018 that still exist, that have been annexed, but still have outstanding deficits. And I can give you a couple. Any enclave annexation that's occurred since the city's done two major enclaves, one in 2004 and one in 1990, and then one in 2004. Every annexation has its own unique deficit. It depends on the historic water that they bring to the table. And so we're going to try to make 2024's update as accurate as possible. We're going to try to, in addition to updating all these existing areas, go in there and get the other ones that weren't really included. Albeit small, we want to go through those, and then again, they have to go through parcel by parcel. And that's where Eric's going to come in, because we're going to have to pull these areas, match them to the annexation maps and the plat maps, so we can really get down to a real high-level detail of calculating what outstanding deficits are going to be. So the point of all this is it's been evolving. It's went from 2004, which was a great attempt for us to make a first stab 20 years ago to understand what's out there, what water rights are out there that are going to come to us through the annexation process, and then therefore what's going to be left. In 2018, we just seen a lot of changes. The biggest was all those open space acquisitions. Huge, humongous impact. And then we'll see what happens with the 2024 data, but it's something that's going to take us months to do from a staffing standpoint, and then just trying to be very detail oriented, to not just do a broad brush, but to try to be detailed.
Pretty important stuff, right? This is not a trick question, but I'll ask Marcia. If there's a conservation easement present, can it ever be annexed? You know what I'm doing,
My
Marcia.
favorite
Pulling your
subject,
chain.
Roger. Well, so I have a couple of questions, and I may be stealing your thunder. There's a new super IGA, like underway. Is this what the planning area is going to be after that's adopted, or are you gonna get a new one sometime this year?
That's something that is to be determined. So what we're showing here is, we're only showing
What it is.
what was as of 2019. So we're not yet making any assumptions as to what it's gonna look like. That'll be part of the conversation, is what should be included. in what
Okay, and then to Roger's point, when you go over the things that are under conservation easements, the best I can understand, given that we've got some people that are deliberately trying to obfuscate the status of Boulder County conservation easements in particular, there are conservation easements that were granted before the big Boulder County open space push and reform. And those conservation easements are all different, we think, and they were not necessarily intended to be perpetual. They were a planning tool. And the fight over the Kanemoto Estates parcel is related to that, because it's a really old conservation easement that, as I understand it, was done so that they could build one house and one septic tank without allowing 4 houses and 4 septic tanks. So, but anyway, it's gonna be necessary to inventory, not just is it under a conservation easement, but what's the nature of the conservation easement? Because some of them are eligible to, by statute, by Boulder County statute, to pay Boulder County a fee and fat fee, and then the land becomes annexable by Longmont, with fights apparently, but anyway. And some of them really are perpetual, and so it's, if we accidentally color one of those red, it will mess up the plan.
And I think that's where these, I'm gonna call it periodic updates, are gonna come into play. Well, I would see it most likely being whatever the status is of the parcel at a period of time, without projecting what it may be, because there's so many things that could change. It'll probably be something we'll say, as of December 31st, 2003, here's what we know. And then, in the future, if any of that changed, we'll update again, and then we'll say, as of December 31st, 2000X, this is what it is. But that's a conversation that we'll have to have. But to make a lot of future assumptions in this, I'm not sure. Those are all good points.
Well, I would not want to make any assumptions about whether it's going to be annexed or not, but it would be useful to know whether each particular easement is designated as perpetual or not.
That's a good point, yeah. And we can maybe have a color code for that.
Yes, please.
The dark purple's this and the light purple's that, or something.
I would be interested in that as well. I've been pretty interested in this whole concept of what does a conservation easement mean anymore, given some high profile issues, kind of states, et cetera. And so if we could get, I don't know if we could get some kind of guidance from Boulder County about which ones are perpetual, which ones aren't, and shade those slightly differently or something.
Yeah.
That might be helpful. The other question that I was going to ask, actually, if you go back to one of the previous slides that showed bigger, yeah, there you go. This particular one, so for example, if it's red, it says annexed into the city of Longmont, but so this is relative to the 2004.
In this case, relative to 2018, yes.
So this is how it stands in 2018, but those that are in red were annexed into the city since that 2004 period.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yep, trying to describe that. And we know that we've annexed around Union Reservoir, for example. So even though that property probably not going to develop on top of the water, we may choose to get a better representation of what has truly been annexed in the Longmont. So there's a lot of pieces to this, but we're just, I think the point that we were trying to make though is this thing evolves over time. We did our best we could in 2004, updated as good as we thought we could for what we needed it to do in 2018, and we're going to try to take another stab at it here for the end of last year.
Really, bottom line is,
pinpointing water availability. I mean, that,
Couple questions.
Yeah.
Comment. The red being annexed lands, is that to assume that there are no deficits on those, or they're annexed and there may be deficit yet owed to the city?
Yes, the latter, it will, I think we have a slide that'll kind of answer maybe a question for you here in just a second. That'll just move forward.
And yet another comment, the city of Longmont's conservation easements, all of those that they have acquired are in perpetuity.
Okay.
And many of the conservation easements that we hold or share with Boulder County, it's written specifically in the contracts whether there's an ability to be annexed or not. So very
It's a
simple.
matter of going through every one of those.
Exactly, like the Hayes conservation easement, again, the city has gone to the point of saying, are you interested in annexation? If not, we're not annexing. But at some point in time, you may have properties like up on County Road 3 and some of the ag properties that conservation easements have not been annexed. You're gonna end up with an enclave anyhow, but at some point in time, the city may just require that.
What is the enclave?
So an enclave is a situation where the city went in, it's been annexed, surrounds the property, it's a donut hole. And the city doesn't really have an effective way of enforcing what would be consistent laws and rules related to that property. So what they did is they went in there and identified different properties, a dozen or two each time, and they did an enclave, which is basically, it's kind of referred to as a forcible annexation. We are the ones that initiated the annexation. The difference for enclaves from normal annexations is, as an enclave, the owner of the property is allowed to retain their historic water, because usually a condition of annexation is the transfer of the historic water. So they retain that historic water until they further subdivide or develop the property. When they do, they transfer the historic, then we calculate the deficit, then they have to figure out how to satisfy that remainder. So we have some enclaves that exist that have no historic water. So whenever they subdivide or further develop, we already know it's 3 acre-foot per acre. We have some out there that have some historic water that would likely satisfy their full 3 acre-feet per acre. And we have some that would be a combination. But the primary difference is it's annexed land, but they still have their historic water to use as they always have. That's the primary difference from a water resources standpoint. All right, Eric?
yeah, lots of questions going.
Yeah.
On the slide too.
So this is representative of the different ways that water comes to us. If we look at it and we're putting it in GIS and you want to see exactly the way things stand, we will put in things like this. We'll put in, how many acre feet there's supposed to be, what the deficit was, when it was annexed, if we have the information on how much was paid for by cash in lieu, how much was satisfied by non-historic water. We include all information like this in the data set that we build to depict these maps, and that's used as the backbone to supply water resources with the information that they can then talk with you as the water board about and help make decisions. So I mean, there's lots more we can do. If there's specific things that are going to be included this year that were not included next year, we can modify the data set. We can add that information and make it more useful for you as the water board and the water resources team on an everyday basis.
So in summary, this is like an Excel tracking of the detail within one of those areas. Because again, we talk about each annexation has its own unique historic water. And because of that, it'll have its then unique remaining raw water deficit. So as we're trying to estimate those parcels that were included in that annexation, what would be left, that's how we're going about it. And then we also are removing any pieces of ground that previously were, let's just say, eligible, but now no longer are, because maybe someone went in there and the county or the city and bought it for open space and put a conservation easement on it. We need to pull that out. We need to make it more accurate to say it's not gonna develop at this moment in time. So that, it's kind of that level of detail that's in the background that's being worked on that helps us ultimately get to the final, kind of the final number. What we're really looking at this effort doing is to say, how many acre feet of water would we reasonably expect to have at planning horizon that would not be satisfied through historic water? So in other words, what would be needed for non-historic and or cash and lieu? So that's where the nexus to cash and lieu comes in. You come up with a number, I'll make up a number, 3,000 acre feet. If it's all said and done, you might come up with there's 3,000 acre feet of water that's gonna have to, there's 3,000 acre feet of deficit within the Longmont area that if we were at sunset horizon would have to be met. Then we can then look at what's the logical available non-historic water that might be acquired through the, and being transferred through the application of the raw water policy, and then kind of get a sense of what it may mean. It seems like we don't know for sure, because right now the raw water policy allows a developer to choose to satisfy deficits with either transfer of non-historic water rights or payment of cash in lieu. They don't have to pay cash in lieu. But we can probably get a reasonable assumption based upon what we know is kind of readily available, how much that might be. That's really where we're working here, to kind of put it in context, overall context. What many acre feet might we reasonably expect from now till eternity to get in terms of cash in lieu?
I feel they've all been asked and
Any more
answered.
questions?
I have some questions.
Yeah.
Sure.
So my thing is I'm hearing you say very loudly, I'm hearing you Wes say very loudly, this will help us determine what might be available, what cash and we might see in the future, because what acres are possible for development, which is great. I love that we're looking for an answer to that question. I'm also curious, and this is kind of back to the boundary question. I'm curious, also, one of the mandates of this board is to worry about water supply, and that's like a longer planning horizon, right? And so I would be curious to know what is the potential demand, because this model also drives demand, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
What is the potential of area that could come into the city, and therefore we have a responsibility to meet that demand? Which I know there's some subtraction of the first part from the second part, but can you give me a little bit of information on the sensitivity of how this is going to affect the demand model?
So, yeah, so like the water demand evaluation, the last update we did for that, well, the first one was done in 1999 and 2000. We did, and even before, but kind of a formal demand evaluation. Then we did a future water demand evaluation in 2012.
Okay.
CH2 and Hill did an evaluation at that time. Then in 2019, we did an update to that.
Right.
So that's probably the one board might be most familiar with. And as part of that was also about 14 different water demand
Land use types, right?
well, water adjustment components. Like there's things, our demand is going to be influenced by different things. It's going to be influenced by water conservation, how good we do on water conservation. It's going to be influenced by the weather. It's going to be influenced by the state's administration of water rights. We got to have a list, and in that list we had a range of what we think might be the influence of those. So the last one again was done in 2019, the update. I don't know. This thing that Eric is helping us with is going to be one piece that's going to feed into that overall water demand study. I don't know when is going to be the next time. See, that study looked at the sunset horizon. It looked at the very end. So unless we have a different very end, I don't know if it's going to, probably not going to do a new one, but it would probably get updated, and it might get updated because of maybe we change our LPA, or maybe we change our projected densities or zoning that would then affect how much water we're gonna use. Now that may or, depending on what lens we're looking at, if we're gonna still ask for 3 acre-feet per acre, and we believe that to be sufficient to meet demands, then from the lens of how much do we need, well, we're still gonna get 3 acre-foot per acre, no matter what.
Right.
And so you're getting into an area that's gonna go a lot deeper.
Well, and
than
that's
what
my
this-
question kind of is this is gonna be an input to that.
Yeah,
Potential demand update. Okay.
yeah.
Quick on this.
Go ahead. I was just gonna say, I mean, it'd be like, if you went into, I mean, if you wanted to put a really fine resolution on that, go into every one of these parcels and say, like, just create some scenario about what goes in there, right? Is it single family homes, is it like condos,
Yeah.
is it, et cetera, apartments or something? Those are all gonna have very different
Right.
demands associated with them. So of course, we're not gonna operate at that fine of resolution, but you can look at to see at the like, at the total acreage basis, right? And say, okay, there's this many acres that are left to be annexed. We're gonna assume that some percentage of that is going to be single family homes, some percentage of that, and you can adjust those percentages and maybe come up
Oh,
with
you're
a
explaining,
determination.
is that a question, or are you explaining?
No, it was kind of putting out into the ether, I suppose.
Okay.
Like, maybe it's an explanation.
I was
if it-
just
if it
recalling the
seems correct, but-
2012 and the 2019 when I was.
And what's funny is when we did the,
And so that's why I was asking if it was.
when we did the 2012, then you compare it to the 2019, I think there was some finer resolution, let's call it. And when we did that, the total demand changed, I think it reduced by hundreds of acre feet. It was, I think, at around 32.7 thousand, so around 32.7 thousand, 32,700 acre foot was our projected demand. In 2019, it came in to be about 32,500. So what we're starting to find, and it could change at any given time, we're getting finer and finer, but it's not going, we're not seeing it going from 40,000 acre foot projection to 30,000, or from maybe 32.5 to 26. We're kind of, we're getting closer, but the amount that it's changing is getting less. That's what we've been seeing. And so, but it's just that, it's a projection, right? So, just,
Thanks for that.
And I was just gonna say, I'm assuming that you take what you've developed and overlay the comp plan.
Yes.
And, that will tell you an approximate
that's right.
what that demand should be in those areas.
That's
that
right.
You have to be.
And that's something that really kind of happened in 2019, where we took more of the, what would be different areas have a different land zoning designation, and then you make an assumption that it's gonna be a certain amount for that designation, and then you plunk that in there. So, yeah, that's something that the water demand evaluation did in 2019. It kind of got a little bit better. It could probably be further refined, but
Well, like you said, that changes all the time. If somebody comes in and changes the zoning.
yeah,
for development
it's,
or what,
Marcia?
Yeah, I was gonna ask about those assumptions as well, because, I mean, if you go back to, 2016 Envision Longmont, it kind of has this assumption that the densest parts of the city are in the center and you have low density on the periphery, and that is no longer the talk from either the planners or the council. We're thinking, well, it's gonna be dense all the way out, and the new zones for annexation are more likely to be residential mixed neighborhood or residential mixed use. And you shouldn't assume that because it's next door to a single family, that it's gonna be that.
right.
So, I just wanted to sort of get that out there to make sure that you talk to planning before you make assumptions about that.
Yeah, and I was just gonna say that, I mean, one of the nice things about this tool, right, is, once you have this GIS put together, then it's a lot easier to go in and kind of, make a few changes in your assumptions and get another answer.
Yeah.
And so the fact that this tool is going to be available is huge, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's like absolutely the base step, the thing that needs
It's
to.
really
foundation of
versatile at
everything.
doing comparisons. So if Wes were to give us 2 or 3 different scenarios for, we'll say even one parcel of land, we could tell you what the difference for the demand would be over and above if there wasn't enough historic water. So, I mean, it can get that granular. It just depends on how much work you want to put up front to get the numbers that you really want. If you want really accurate numbers, it takes longer, but in the end, you gain more because you get more clarity, so.
Scott, you got any questions?
No, because you guys are so darn thorough.
Well,
I'm tracking. You guys did a good job.
okay. Any other questions? Right?
I was just gonna ask whether or not, it'll be available to us to click through on our own. So
That's
like,
what I wanted to see. I mean, like I said, this is gonna take us quite a while, and I don't, we'll definitely share the information when we get it. Now, whether or not, I can't make the decision what's gonna be, like, if we're gonna put this out there, some kind of protected, make available for the public or whatever, because there might be maybe some reasons to do that and to not do that, but we'll have that conversation as we move forward.
or, you know, but I suppose there's different ranges, right? There's public and also waterborne, perhaps, you know, maybe. I don't know how accessible or whether there's a limit.
We have a lot of options as far as that goes, so.
Very good. Thanks, Eric.
Nice to meet you all.
Well,
Thank
hey,
you.
okay. Any agenda revisions at all?
I have none.
So let's go on to development activity.
Okay. So, Water Board has a couple items for action in front of you. The first is Modern West Filing 1 Final Plat. It's a 19.621 acre parcel located north of Nelson, south of Rogers Road, and west of Hover Street. It actually includes a couple different annexations, but as such, all historic water rights were transferred at time of annexation. And Modern West Filing 1 Final Plat will be in compliance with the city's well water requirement policy. It shouldn't say, I apologize, historic waters were transferred. Upon satisfaction of the 19.901 acre foot deficit at time of final plat approval. So this is a piece of ground that's mixed use zoning, multifamily and commercial. Don't really know a whole lot other than I've had some conversations with the owner and developer, and as of right now, they've been working towards getting non-historical water. So, any other questions on that?
Where that site, the big development that's going on out there now in that kind of that area, is that west of that big development or is it? And it's kind of hard to figure out how much land is out there because
There's not much. There's another annexation that's going through the design review process, and it's almost like an enclave, if you will. That is a piece, and so what we're finding is some of these parcels have multiple owners, which took time to get multiple owners together and all on the same page to move the project forward. That's not necessarily the case with this one. A lot of these have to do with just the current economic state of affairs. And so on this particular one, they also, there's always something unique about every project. I think on this one, there was some effort that they need to make on road access. So anytime you have development, you've got to have in and out access, fire. And so that's why there's 2 different annexations that were a part of this that they had to use to accomplish those goals. But suffice it to say, this one is pretty clear. It's pretty straightforward, like most plats. They've got their deficit, and I think they're working working to do non-historic for the bulk of it. I don't know that we'll do it all, but that's not uncommon. It's, a lot of developers will get as close to without going over the 3 acre foot per acre, and then they'll hit it right to the penny with cash and bill.
So
Wes, is this located near the storage facility, the recreational vehicle storage facility? Is that
Yeah,
approximate to that?
yeah, approximately, yes. Yep.
Because they've got that road access along there. Is that part of this, or is this further to the west?
So I think it's a little bit to the west, and then there's a leg that shoots off to join that. I wish I could answer it a little bit better, but I kept my review specific to the water rights purview, and so I don't have that, but I can look it up and get back to you if you want.
That's okay, thanks.
And Chris may know.
What was the question?
He was asking if this was adjacent to that storage site that was there, which I think
Yes.
is to the east.
Yeah, the north side of this annexation is the north side of Anderson Storage.
Yeah.
And Anderson Street is just to the east of this, about 1,500 feet to the east.
Yeah. So.
But that's why I was worried about the road access, because I knew that Anderson Road is eventually supposed to connect Nelson and Rogers, isn't it?
Yes. This same developer is looking at that area north of this site, which would include that extension of Anderson Street all the way to Rogers. They are constructing the main collector, which is Mountain Brook Drive right now, which is running through all the homes that they're building right now. And that will connect from where Rogers makes the swoop down to the south. That'll connect all the way through to Hover.
Thanks, Chris.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just for clarification, they have 19 acre feet in deficit that they owe. And it sounds like they're looking to acquire that historic water,
Non-historic.
non-historic. Should they decide that I just want to do cash in lieu, we would take that 19 times right now it's the 48.5?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. So I'll go ahead and review with you the next one, and then you can make one recommendation to forward to council on these respectively. The second item in there is 11386 East Rogers Road annexation. It's a 9.24 acre parcel located south of East Rogers Road and east of Lashley Street. This particular annexation includes a quarter share of Oligarchy Ditch and 3/8 of a share of Oligarchy Extension. After the application of the historic water, the total raw water deficit for 11386 East Rogers Road is 21.1 acre feet or 2.284 of an acre foot of water per acre of land. It's zoned for mixed use, and currently the plan is for 355 residential multifamily units on this property. So it'll be
What was that number again?
355 residential multifamily units.
How many acres is it?
It's 9.2, so there's about 38 units per acre. So, so they will be in compliance with transfer of the historic water rights at time of annexation.
Any questions? Any reason, any downside to these at all?
Nope, these are just normal. Nothing really unique, different than normal.
Process-wise, at what point in time, if they still have a deficit, they cannot begin to develop the property until that deficit is satisfied?
Correct.
Okay.
And after annexation, anytime after annexation, they can satisfy that deficit.
Right.
So if they wanted to satisfy it, if they annexed and transferred the historic water, let's say that was completed July 1st, on July 2nd, if they wanted to, they could come and satisfy that full remaining and have it completely satisfied. Now, that wouldn't allow them to develop. They still have to go through the planning design review process for that, but some people will choose to do that. Maybe they were able to maybe they have a water rights portfolio in their holding that would allow them to satisfy it. Maybe they want to satisfy it and then resell the property as fully no further raw water deficits. So they will do that, not knowing what the future may bring. Most of the time, though, they wait until they plat of some sort, and then it's at that plat that they'll satisfy the remaining deficits.
Maybe the questions I'm asking is know that we're gonna likely bump cash flow here within the next quarter pretty significantly. Does it make sense for some of these people to look at knowing that and be able to settle things earlier rather than later? That's a financial decision on their part, right?
Yeah, we try to always direct them to the raw water policy and let it speak for itself. But then, that being said, I don't know of a developer that's part of the DRC process that I haven't personally had a conversation with about those types of questions.
Well, to that point, with these developers, do they have some insight that cash and lieu may change?
That's part of our conversation that we certainly have with them. They understand that. And it is also identified in the raw water requirement policy. And they have to read it. Then.
Any other questions? If nobody objects, why don't we just lump these two together? And if that's all right, somebody had a motion to approve these two?
I'll move that.
Okay,
I can second.
all right, moved and seconded. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, it's passed. Thanks, Wes. So, this is yours also, posting.
Excuse me?
You got the posting piece?
Yeah, so Water Board will recall each year at this time, pursuant to Colorado Sunshine Law, Water Board needs to determine its designated posting place for its agendas. And so Water Board in the past has followed the city attorney's office recommendation to designate the public portal on the city's website as the primary location of its official posting place for the monthly Water Board meeting, as well as designating a physical location. And so that physical location in the past has been here in the front foyer. For sake of being consistent, City Council, they chose to make their physical posting place the west entrance of the Civic Center lobby. And so what the staff are recommending is to make, for the Water Board to consider designating the public portal as the city's official posting place, but also the posting at the west entrance of the Civic Center lobby as a secondary physical location for posting. So nothing different than it would be right now as we speak. Instead of here in this foyer, it would be in the Civic Center building where there's a whole bulletin board. City attorney or city council's agendas, Water Boards will be there as well.
More traffic.
Probably more traffic.
Well, they also already post it there. I post it here as well, but I always send it up to the city clerk's office and they post it up there as well. So since more people see it up there, it makes more sense to have that the official location. But we'll still post it here as well.
So it won't hurt us to post it multiple places, but we have to have some place that we're putting it. So.
Any comments or questions?
I like the putting it where more people will see it. Get some exciting public comment.
Yeah.
You need
We can expect 3 or 4.
a vote on this?
Need an official motion of where those posting places will be.
Is there a posting motion?
We got that kind of there.
Anybody want to make a motion?
I will make the motion to change the physical posting location to Yeah, civic center.
For a second?
Sure.
Can I chime in, fellas and ladies? All right, there's a motion made and seconded, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye.
I,
Aye. We wait for Ken to get here. Or
We
take
don't
the
know
next
that he'll
item?
be here, so if for
There's
sake of you guys
overtime,
being able to
Wes.
get home, not wait. Yeah, so what we wanted to do today is give a kind of a quick presentation of Windy Gap Firming Project. There's been some really important milestones that have been reached recently, and just highlight some of those milestones and significant accomplishments. I was also encourage you, if you really want to see a really cool video that will kind of do a much better job summarizing this than I will, on the Northern website for Chimney Hall, they got a 10 to 15 minute video that they made basically at the very end of last year. And it'll go through many of these different bullets that all include, but they got some pictures and stuff and some time-lapse photography and stuff, and it's really well done. So encourage you to go to their, if you go to the Northern Colorado Water Conservancy District webpage, and they've got one specific for Chimney Hollow, and then there's a video link on that. So Northern staff on the January 9th gave a presentation to the Windy Gap Firming participants to highlight some of these milestones and accomplishments. And so this photo was actually taken on the 8th of January, so it's now a week old. You can kind of get it, you can kind of see how much this dam has grown. I mean, if you recall, it's, you use these trucks for scale, and a human wouldn't even come to the top, the top of the tire. And when we were all out there, when Waterboard was out there before, we were down below here, 150 feet down. And you can just look at the breadth of the dam itself. It's really taking off. They were able to work a good part of last year, like double shifts, 24 hours a day, 6 days a week. Had on average 500 people on site at any given time. This particular project will be the largest reservoir built in the United States this century. So this is not I'm repeating a lot of things here that you probably have already heard, but hopefully when we're all done and you guys leave today, you're gonna come across, maybe not remembering specific bullet point things, but thinking, wow, they're really moving along well and they're doing a lot of work. The main dam, which is what we're looking here in this photo, is approximately 180 feet tall right now. So it's just barely over 50% of its total height. Total dam height is about 390 feet. That's kind of significant because there was a $15 million agreement, I guess. The term right now is escaping me. A settlement, I believe it was. And with that settlement, $5 million was paid initially. Then there was another $5 million to be paid at 50% completion of the dam. So that's why this height is important, because we're now over 50%, and the participants are paying that next $5 million payment. Then the final $5 million payment for that part of the settlement will be made at the completion of the dam, when the state certifies it's complete and you can start putting water in it. So kind of think of it as we're halfway there. And so that's a pretty big accomplishment. So the dam height, when this is completed. Again, it'll be 390 feet tall. It'll be 1,000 feet wide. So, 3 football fields wide plus. And the length all the way across will be almost 3,700 feet long. So, big structure.
Will it cost less to build the second half than the first half?
So, yeah, we're gonna talk about that. So,
Okay.
so if you go to the next slide. So, on December 21st, they placed the last plinth, which was huge. So now they're gonna really be able to start rocking and rolling. It takes a lot of work to get it going, but now that has been completed, they're on track to have so the original estimate was to have the dam completed in August of 2025. And right now the projection is to be within that, maybe 1 month later, which means that they're still really close to being on track. And for a project of this size, this has probably got 10 other projects within it, and any one of those would be a massive project. So to have all those coming together right now, like they have been, is really incredible. They've got approximately 65% completion of all the work. So even though the dam is about 50%, there's other work that's going on. There's a saddle dam to the south. There's other parts of it, the pipe gallery where they're going to be taking water and different things. And so as of right now, they're within 10 to 12% of their forecasted budget, which, as you may recall, I think they had their original budget, and they always have a contingency. It was, if I'm not mistaken, it was within about 10%. So they're, I guess I'm just going to say, for all intents and purposes, pretty close to being on budget. You've got the asphalt core that they've been working on. Kind of a reminder, it's about little over a 2 foot wide asphalt core, and then it goes out in different zones as you go throughout it. And then at the very end, you've got like up to 2 foot rock, like riprap on the very outside edges. And so that's where you really start feeling the magnitude of that when that footprint is getting wider. Next slide. So here are some of the achievements. Like I mentioned earlier, in December they completed putting in the last plinth. It's hard to get your head around. I can't even do it. 10,000 cubic yards of concrete have been put in there. 16 miles of rock anchor. 22 miles of grout holes. 60 acres of foundation work cleaned up, mapped, and approved. The embankment is 50% complete. You can read these. I don't probably need to. I would like, though, to highlight the one that, especially that bottom, 62,000 tons a day is quarried. So it's now the largest mining operation in Colorado. They're blasting nearly every day. Something that, well, I'm going to ask you to go to the next slide, please. Maybe that one. Yeah. So 1,700 feet of tunneling. I mean, there's just a ton of thing going on. For some reason, the mechanics piece kind of struck me. 162 pieces of heavy equipment. Those are those big trucks that they're hauling. 230 pieces of light duty equipment. This is like your pickup trucks or that size or smaller. They've got 30 mechanics on site at any given time when they're working on this. It's just incredible what they've done. The next slide, please. So, showing kind of the cost, you can kind of see the lines. The red line where we're at now, it's accumulated percent complete, so we're about 55% right now. The blue line is where we were kind of wanting to be. We're what happened was we had a lot of rain last year, and that did slow us down. But now they're actually making up speed, and what we're finding is they're kind of starting to get close, and they believe that if everything of all the stars align this summer, they're going to be back on right on track, which is pretty good. The original contract amount was for $507.8 million. They've had some change orders, brought it to currently it's $535 million. What they've done so far is $294.5, or about 55%. So I think we're going to find accelerated work being done in this last year and a half, but it's the amount of payment and the amount left to spend is probably it's right around half. We've got about 45% more to probably pay out. Okay, and then the next slide. So this is just kind of, that's where I was talking about the material placement. If you're just out there looking, seeing where they're at and where they were supposed to be, you see a bigger gap. You know, we were tracking pretty close, and then with the weather, we kind of got behind down here in the summertime, and then we just kind of followed, but now we're starting to get a little bit closer. So we're thinking that sometime, you know, by the middle of this year, we should probably be back on track and getting real close to having all the materials placed and the way that we were hoping for. And slide, I think. Yeah, it's just any questions you may have, but that's just it's still unbelievable the amount of material that they're moving. I mean, creating all that material there and then placing it, and it's but I do encourage you or any of the public to go to that website they do a really good job at kind of highlighting all those and speaking to them. So that's kind of my presentation. If you ask me very many hard questions, I'm about toast, so I don't know if I can answer them. I would try.
Pretty successful.
Yeah.
Really, you know, think about it.
It really is. I mean, it's a great project that we should all feel proud to be a part of. I think it's going to be, when it's all said and done, I think it's not only is it going to serve Longmont well, it's going to serve anyone that lives in this area well, from the recreational aspect that it's going to give to the and to just think about what it took to get there. Incredible, absolutely incredible.
Any questions? Thanks, Mark.
You're welcome.
Hope you got anything going? Or are you just here for information?
Moral support otherwise.
All right. You have major projects, tentative schedule for future board meetings. Any comments about what we're planning on bringing up next month or two?
Yeah, well, and I'll mention that the Button Rock Reserve and Forest Stewardship, they'll be planning to bring that to you next month, so you'll get a recap of what happened up there last year and plans for next year. And we're also hopeful that we'll have a member of the Northern Water staff come, and if not Ken, to present the Lower Colorado River issues and concerns. Or hoping to get Northern staff to kind of do kind of a special presentation.
What month was that going to be?
Next month, which is a reminder, it's February 26th, the 4th Monday.
Okay. Item 12, basically cash and lieu, we'll take that up in March. You think the unknowns will be resolved by then?
I'm not very optimistic.
Really?
And the reason I say that, Roger, is I don't know that you're gonna have confirmed sales of all that parent Windy Gap. There's a process it's not like buying a car, and it has to go to the Northern Board, to the municipal sub-district board, to take action. And I think that's kind of at the timeline of when PRPA is gonna put it in front of the board, then the board has to act. Then PRPA has to work to find a time to close with the person that's gonna buy, the entity that's gonna buy it. And I think it's gonna happen, but I think it's slowed down just a little bit. And I think, you know, for me to keep it in my own head straight, I think of it as, if you're trying to buy a house, you're looking for comparables, and there's closed sales, and there's ones that are maybe offers or pending type sales, and it seems like for something like this, it would make sense to have those completed sales, and I just don't know if it'll be ready by that March, but time will tell.
That makes sense. What happened the first half of this year, do you think?
You mean?
The sale thing will understand the numbers.
Yeah, I think this is just Karnak, but I think by the second quarter, so in June, that I think we'll have those confirmed numbers that can be used, and then we're gonna have to have a conversation about if that's still the matrix we're wanting to use to determine cash in lieu and all those other things. But yeah, we're just gonna have to wait and see.
Any comments or questions? Be nice to tie that, you know, I mean, if there's a price that needs to be adjusted, anyway, I'll just leave it at that. Any comments on the future agenda items that are laid out on the sheet that we get in minutes? Anybody got any comments or questions? You know, I don't know if this is pertinent or not, but I just cut out an article that there's some CBT auctions coming up.
There is.
Big stuff. It's a lot of.
Well, if you don't have anything else to do on Valentine's Day, you can go down and listen. It's gonna be down at the fairgrounds.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see what the outcome of that is.
Yeah, exactly.
Which fair?
Old County Fairgrounds for
Okay. Yeah.
90 units, I believe, for the Yokums.
Yeah, and Carlson, I don't know much about that.
Yeah, there's gonna be another auction a little different day for some more water. It seems to be like some of the larger CDT holders are choosing to auction their water as opposed to other ways of marketing their water. And in this particular one, if you go onto the website that talks about it, they're selling it in little blocks. So you could go in there, they're not just selling 90 units, they're acre foot units, they're selling, the first one is for 2 units, the second time will be for 2 units, and the third one for 2, then it'll be for 3 units, and then for 5 units, and so kind of pick and choose which one, and it's an interesting way of doing it, and it'll be interesting to see who's bidding on it, and to see how much they're willing to pay.
Yeah.
I don't think Longmont will be interested in seeing. I don't think we plan to go try to put a bid in. But
I was just about to ask that. Like, what are the factors that go into, like, okay, there's an option. Is Longmont interested, right? Like, what kind of conversations do you all have about any one of these types of events, and when it is that you might or may not?
So these types of things don't always happen that often. I mean, this is only the third or fourth one that I've really thought of. And it just so happens this particular one is in our back door. So I think, so CBT has its place. CBT is single-use water. We usually aspire to get water rights that are fully consumable. I think water that, like, for example, if we were to entertain the idea of going out and making a bid to acquire some of these, that would be money that we would have to take out of our water rights cash in lieu fund. And I think a lot of that money is kind of earmarked to help pay for Chimney Hollow. And so I don't think we're wanting to not do that so that we can get single-use CBT. But I think there's going to be, I will not be surprised if there's other water providers and water communities that really are looking for CBT. That's kind of what they want. That's how they use a water district, that's all they really treat. And those folks, or a developer that wants to develop in that community that needs to bring CBT to that community. I wouldn't be surprised if but the kind of the tricky part, I think, that they're gonna come up with, so in order to be a part of this auction, you have to have a place to put the water. You can't park it. That's the no parking rule that Northern established before. You can't just go and hold on to it like a stock shoe. You gotta have a piece of land to put it. So before you can even be eligible to go and bid on this, you have to first have approval from the Northern District to even purchase it. So I think that in and of itself probably limits some properties. There might be some people that have, developers that have acquired pieces of ground to develop, but maybe the prior owner sold their CDT off, and which is not against the law. But maybe now they're like, well, we really kind of need CDT. So it's just going to be interesting to track, and eventually we'll get that information. But tentatively, we may try to have a representative down there to just see what it is, see how it goes.
Do we, and I'm having like a brain moment where maybe this isn't even the right question, but do we accept CBT water as historic water?
We take all historic, which includes CBT, and we also list it as one of the non-historic water rights. So if you look at the last 50 years, there was times where people were getting CBT because for the longest time, Cash and Lou was based on CBT, and some people were able to find that they could go and buy CBT for a fraction of what the Cash and Lou is. They could save themselves a percentage, and that was enough savings for them to go ahead and go to that effort. But now that the cost of CBT is in that neighborhood of $65,000 to $75,000 per unit, I'm not aware of any trans-basin water rights that economically make a lot of sense. It's more local native basin water rights that people are looking at.
Wes, just out of curiosity, is this from the estate of Harvey Yoakum?
That's right. Yep. It is.
Okay, anybody have anything else to add to the meeting? Scott, anything?
Nothing, thanks, Roger.
All right. Well, there's no other business to take up. We'll be adjourned.